What if I told you the New York Knicks losing to the Indiana Pacers in the fashion that they did in Game 7 at home in the Garden in front of those fans? What if I told you it was a blessing in disguise? I'm not going out on a limb here and saying anything new, but what I'm here to say is I am making the final case here for Anthony Edwards as the new face of the NBA. It is official as of last night after the Timberwolves sent the Denver Nuggets home, even though they were playing in their home arena in Denver. I am here to tell you right now, he is the new face of the NBA. Does anybody care about this Boston Celtics versus Indiana Pacers series? I am going to try and claw at it with everything I can to try and make you guys intrigued in this series. Let's rock out. Welcome to the Daily Drip, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steven Conrad Jr., and today is the first long-form edition of this show. We talk all things sports, although most people really know me for my knowledge of the NBA. I'm a diehard Philly sports fan, but I have branched off here and started something new. Wanted to share my passion, my dream with you guys. Now, today is a very, very special edition. I am so glad I couldn't pick a better time to really launch this thing because boy, oh boy, we're coming off of two incredible Game 7 series in the second round of the playoffs. We got news all over the place. We can talk off-season, we can talk all that stuff, but there was literally no better time to launch this thing than now. Before I dive into the meat and potatoes of today's show, I wanted to give a quick little introduction here. So you can find me on all socials. My name is Steven Conrad Jr. I do have an Instagram page dedicated to this show specifically. It's the Daily Drip Show on Instagram. You can find all of the podcast clips and stuff like that. A lot of big plans. Really excited to dive into things here. Guys, this is my life. Sports are my life. From the very, very beginning, playing youth sports, when I first touched a basketball, it was always my first love. I played football. I played baseball, soccer. I'm sure there's something else I'm missing. I've been thinking about getting into golf. That's kind of like the thing us 24-year-olds get into now that our playing days are almost over, although I refuse to believe my basketball playing days are over as my back is in pain right now. If you saw the introduction, the video side of things here, you're probably wondering how the heck did I elevate the camera and desk setup. I have a standing desk here. I take my health very seriously, so there's going to be more than just sports here. I'm here to express my passions. Obviously sports first and foremost, but I just have a passion for life and living my best life and smiling, making other people laugh. So I really just hope, where I may not be the most knowledgeable of person when it comes to sports, I love this shit, man. I eat, sleep, breathe sports. I get high off of life, man. Like, I'm here to entertain you guys. My goal is to get this thing rolling, get it up on audio platforms too, so that when you're driving into work, maybe you work a job where you're allowed to listen to podcasts and such while you're on the clock or whatever it may be. I want my voice in your ears. I want to share this experience with you guys. Now, I'm going to give everybody a warning. I can be very strong when it comes to my takes, very opinionated and very aggressive. I don't even know if that's the right word. You may not agree with everything I say, but that's fine. That's the beauty of all this stuff. Anyways, let's dive into it. Where do I start? I'll start with the Knicks. Just because that game was first on Sunday, 3 o'clock tip-off, I believe. Obviously, that game was a complete shit show from the beginning. The New York Knicks were completely worn out. Jalen Brunson, everybody's hurt. They're missing like 3 or 4 guys, and Jalen Brunson, they're playing with injuries. They're just worn out. A classic Tom Thibodeau postseason. Although I don't want to sit here because I know New York Knicks fans, I know how they are. I'm sure Sports Talk Radio today, May the 20th, as of this recording, everybody was calling for him to be fired and stuff like that. But boy, were they handicapped with injuries, man. OG Anunoby left the game early. He played most of that series, he didn't play most of that series due to injury. I'm missing a few other names. And obviously, I believe Jalen Brunson left the game early too. I'm not going to lie, I kind of tuned the game out because it was such a blowout. But I'm really here to dive into why the Knicks losing is actually a blessing in disguise. Look, I'm a Sixers fan. let's just make this clear. Philly sports, those are all my teams. I root for all the Philadelphia teams. So I know how it feels to have your season ending in excruciating fashion, especially in game sevens, by the way. Close out games at home, by the way, in front of your home fans. I'm sure that was painful for any of the Knicks fans who bought tickets to go to that game to see your team lose live like that. I know how you feel. I know how it feels. I have my opinion on the New York Knicks because they're technically our rival and they did end our season, and their fans more specifically, but I'm here to just rip off some knowledge and make this kind of like a little venting session for you guys. This season was house money because Jalen Brunson elevated himself so much. Let's just be honest, that Knicks team was so mediocre. They probably wouldn't finish as high as a seed as they did in the Eastern Conference if it wasn't for Joel Embiid being injured. Let's just keep it a buck like Antetokounmpo. And even that Bucks team, if they didn't have injuries, they probably would have finished as a higher seed if they weren't such a walking disaster, right? But still, the Knicks are a very quality team. You guys, I like to use this saying, the New York Knicks squeezed all of the juice out of the orange. And I don't know, if you look around the NBA, I'm not sure there's a lot of teams that you can truly say that about. Like, did the Sixers really squeeze all the juice out of the orange? Maybe, but Joel Embiid was injured. You know what I mean? And it's hard to say. But if you look around the league, like the Celtics, for example, are a perfect example. It feels like there's way more juice to be squeezed out of that orange. I mean, they're a weird team. We'll get into them. But, like, look, man, that was house money. Jalen Brunson cemented himself as one of the best, if not the best point guard in the NBA. Should have been higher in the MVP voting, in my opinion. That's a completely other thing. We got to fix that. That's going to be a hot topic on this podcast all off season. We got to fix the award thing. But the foundation is there. This is the first season, Knicks fans. You know what? You should wake up. I know today probably was painful, but you should wake up with your head held high, knowing that your team competed. They clawed, they itched and scratched and clawed, blood, sweat, tears, whatever you want to say, to the finish line. Just came up short, ran out of gas. They literally had no more gas. Like I said, there was no more juice to squeeze out of the orange. Pacers team was far more healthy. And it showed. And it showed the last few games of that series, for that matter. But the reason why this is a blessing in disguise, in my opinion, look, I think the New York Knicks now moving forward, just because they have elevated themselves so much out of mediocrity, because they've been mediocre, if not well below mediocre, for quite some time. It's been a very long stretch of tough times for Knicks fans, right? Even if you go back to the Carmelo Anthony run back in like the 2010 era, I want to say, which is might be my favorite era of basketball, honestly. You guys were like the 7th seed, sometimes barely making the 8th seed and getting to the playoffs, or missing the playoffs for that matter. And you forced a Game 7, almost got to the Eastern Conference Finals. Would you guys have matched up well against the Boston Celtics? I think so, but it's quite clear, fatigue was a thing. Fatigue was a thing, as we have seen in the playoffs. I think the Knicks were going to make big moves, or attempt to make big moves, regardless this offseason, whether it's in free agency or via trade. And that's why I'm here to tell you this is a blessing in disguise, because if the Knicks would have moved on, who knows what would have happened. I think the Celtics probably would have beat them. But now it's like, man, got to take this one on the chin, get back to the drawing board. Look, the Knicks were literally playing 6 or 7 guys. Now, injuries are a big factor, but they got to get more depth. But more importantly, I think they should be all in. They should be all in on a star. And there's one name that really comes to my mind. I see there's a lot of names being thrown around there, and it's the offseason. We love this shit, man. NBA 2K, play, the My League, My GM modes, rebuild these teams, move star players around. You know how it is. The offseason's always a movie. I hope my Sixers make some moves this offseason. But I think the Knicks need to get another star. Dante DiVincenzo, I love him. Look, I'm a Villanova Wildcats fan, so literally it was like bittersweet watching you guys end my Sixers season, because half those guys should be on the Sixers roster anyway. We should have had like Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo. We had Mikal Bridges, but we traded him on draft night. Don't get me started on that. You guys need a swing man. You need a running mate for Jalen Brunson, another alpha type player, and I think Kevin Durant's the guy. That was the New York team he should have went to in the first place. We wouldn't have this whole mix-up. He's catching a lot of heat. Kevin Durant is an all-time great, and he is the exact type of player that the New York Knicks need. They need a running mate for Jalen Brunson, but not somebody who's going to get in the way of him, Because that's like the biggest thing when you go and trade for a star. You don't want to get a guy that's going to get in the way of the current star that exists there on the franchise if you already have one. And I think Kevin Durant is the guy because he's a wing player. He can play that small forward position, power forward position. Great catch and shoot player. Absolutely unstoppable in the mid-range. Like, need I say more? Need I say more? He's been pretty durable, too, the last few years. I know, like, coming off that Achilles injury, a lot of people wrote him off, but boy, has he been a fantastic player ever since. And I think it kind of got overshadowed this season how productive he was because the Phoenix Suns were such a disaster. That quote-unquote big three just did not work at all for him. I mean, they you want to talk about running out of gas. They got too many slow old heads, too many mid-range guys-oriented players on that team, and literally no defense at all. Bring Kevin Durant in there in New York, and I think Thibs would get the most out of Durant. Now, I'm not saying that's the only guy you should trade for, but it just makes so much sense to me. I'm pretty sure Durant's like podcast company is it the boardroom? It's one of those things he has is based in New York anyway. So just get him back there, get him back in the East Coast. I'm not sure what the trade would look like, but in my opinion, that's who they should be after. That Suns situation is a ticking time bomb. My sense is that they're going to try and run it back. They are literally in cap space hell in Phoenix. Like, they can't sign anybody this offseason. The only thing they can do is make trades, and it probably seems like they're just going to run it back because, like, injuries and everything kind of got in the way. You know, but they're bringing in a new head coach, one that they believe in. But I think now would be the time. They could get the most for Durant now, too, because that's the other thing. He's older. Durant's name speaks for himself. You're always going to get a pretty good return for him. But I think if you're the Phoenix Suns, now would be the time to do something like that. It'd probably end up being like a 3-team trade or something like that. Who knows what it would look like. But who knows? Maybe the Knicks could sign a guy like Paul George, convince him to come to the Knicks. A 3-and-D guy kind of fits what Thibs is looking for. But I just think they're lacking. They need another star there alongside Jalen Brunson. It just makes too much sense. So they can get on top of that now and move forward. Moving on. Let's talk about what we really want to talk about. We got ourselves a fantastic Game 7. Timberwolves Nuggets Game 7. Look, what you saw last night was the largest comeback win in a Game 7 in the last 25 postseasons. The Minnesota Timberwolves outscored the Nuggets 60-32, starting from the 9:51 minute mark in the third quarter to the end of the game. And after starting the first two games of this series completely exposing the Denver Nuggets, most notably on the defensive end, that Timberwolves defense, oh my goodness. And the thing is, one of those games, Game 2, was without the reigning defending, what is he, the 3-time, 4-time, whatever he is now, Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. Can you believe that? Straight dogs on that team. Like, dogs. I haven't seen a defense like that in quite some time. What they are doing over there in Minnesota is unbelievable. What a season they've had. Moving on to the Western Conference Finals to take on the Dallas Mavericks, and I just can't begin to tell you how excited I am for that series. It's so refreshing. I'm not like a Denver Nuggets hater, but I had Denver Nuggets fatigue. I had Nikola Jokic fatigue. Look, a lot of people threw the term out there that he's the best player in the world. I would probably agree with you. He didn't even necessarily play bad last night. Like, the Timberwolves doubled him in the post a lot and forced him to get rid of the ball. Michael Porter Jr. just couldn't hit his threes. Aaron Gordon couldn't hit his threes. I think the combination of Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon only scored 11 points, and there was only 1 or 2 made threes between the two of them combined. There's your problem right there. And that was the exact game plan that needed to happen. Like, you had to get the ball out of Jokic's hands. Just force him to beat you passing the ball. I mean, he was dominating. He was dominating the few games leading up to it. And he played well last night, too. He was 0 of 7 from 3 at one point. And then he hit 2 in the fourth quarter, and you're like, uh-oh, here he comes. He's claiming his throne again. But, I mean, I just can't say enough good things about this Timberwolves team. I was so pissed off when they were down that much in that game, and they just came back and won. Another interesting stat for you guys, by the way. Mike Conley was 0-4 in his career in Game 7s heading into last night, so he finally secured the win. He was well on his way to losing his fifth, being 0-5 in Game 7s. I just can't believe they pulled that thing out. I can't believe it. Anthony Edwards, man, what is there not to like about this guy? The Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan comparisons are legit a thing. And before you get all pissed off, I am not saying he's the next Jordan or the next Kobe. I'm just saying he plays like them. His play style and his on-court demeanor, that guy is a dog. He is ruthless. He has that Mamba mentality to him. Absolutely. Speaking of, I'm wearing my Kobe Bryant polo shirt. This kid is 22 years old, guys. That is why he's being compared to him. The things he is doing at this age. Everybody gets, not everybody, a lot of people seem to get pissed off when people throw the term around there, you know, the next face of the NBA, or he is the face of the NBA and all that stuff. He is, guys. He is. He is so refreshing. I don't know about you guys, but I found myself saying a lot during the regular season. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because I was super locked into the NFL this year. But the NBA just didn't hit the same for me this year, the regular season. I mean, but from the officiating to all the injuries and the stars resting, and look, I get it. I don't blame them. It is a long, long regular season. But this postseason has completely sucked me back in, and it just feels like the NBA is back to being the game that I once fell in love with and was in love with, and I'm back in love with it again. Like, seriously, did anybody else feel that way? I just found myself like not caring about the NBA this year. I could not sit through an entire regular season game. I even struggled to sit through full regular season games of my Sixers squad. I mean, just from all the officiating, the foul baiting, and the constant arguing over rules and players calling out the officials after games, and I don't blame them. I mean, they got a lot they got to clean up this offseason, but and there has been some major officiating blunders in this postseason, but man, it's been great. It's been great. But let's just talk about this Timberwolves team some more, man. Throughout his career, Karl Anthony Towns, to me, even like dating back from the beginning on in his NBA career, I've never been the biggest of fans. I've always thought he's been kind of soft. And Mark Finch, the Timberwolves coach, has gotten the best out of everybody on that team, and most notably Karl Anthony Towns. Like, obviously, Anthony Edwards has ascended to becoming arguably the face of the NBA and one of the best players, even at his young age. But I think the job he's done, with some of their role players, obviously, as well, which we will touch on. Naz Reid, are you kidding me? That guy is fantastic. I have a hot take about him. I think he's a starter on, like, 99.9% of teams in this league. He is awesome, and he's a big reason why the Timberwolves were able to get back in that game last night. All the offensive rebound, putbacks, big threes. His defense on Nikola Jokic, are you kidding me? But anyways, back to Cat. So yeah, like Cat has emerged and turned himself into, like, he's calling himself the best shooting big of all time. I mean, my God, he's pretty lethal from beyond the arc. He certainly has a case there. Maybe when it's all said and done, he'll be there. Who knows? Fantastic shooter. Fantastic. I mean, he's like Dirk on steroids. He's like Durant, but he's got a quick release. Like, he'll shoot that thing, hand in his face. It don't matter. It don't matter. But he's turned into, Mark Finch has gotten the dog out of him. Like, there was a few times in this series where I thought he played soft, and the Timberwolves ended up losing. Like, Cat is literally the X factor of this Timberwolves team. Like, Anthony Edwards obviously shot really poorly last night, 6 of 24, and I like this conversation what we're getting right now. He got a lot of help, obviously. Like, this is how the NBA playoffs are, guys. It's a team sport. Not one player just carries your team to a championship. As much as we talk about how great Jokic is, he stuffs the stat sheet. His team, like when they won last year, they were dominant. Jamal Murray turns into, he's got that like Jimmy Butler factor to him where he Jamal Murray's never been an all-star, and he just turns into one of the best players in the league in the playoffs every postseason. That's just the type of player that he is. And all the depth that they've had, obviously they lost some depth this year, losing Bruce Brown, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody else. But it's a team sport, guys. So back to Anthony Edwards, like shooting 6 of 24. Yeah, really poor shooting night. And I was really concerned. At one point in the third quarter, he was shooting like 1 of 9 from the field, 2 of 9 from the field, and he only had 4 points. And then all of a sudden, switch. starts locking up Jamal Murray, making all these hustle plays, timely steals, and that's the thing. They were timely buckets when he scored, but not just that. They were doubling him all night. And he learned how to face the double teams. He was driving, kicking, creating open shot opportunities for his teammates, and that's what happened last night. They started hitting. Jaden McDaniels, 23 points. Like this is the kind of stuff that happens. And at the age of 22, like these are the things that star players tend to struggle with, especially when they're dominant, like predominantly scorers. They have that score first mentality. Like it took Jordan a long time to learn that, hey, like I don't have to go out there and score 50 every night for us to win. And as a matter of fact, our best chance at winning is not me scoring 50. It's me getting 30 every night if possible, maybe more, taking less shots, but driving, drawing double teams, hitting the open man, hitting the open cutters, and just having that court vision. And you saw the growth from Anthony Edwards literally in one game last night. Finished with 7 assists, but it felt like he could have definitely had 10-plus assists. They were missing some shots, and that was the thing in the first half. His swing mates weren't hitting the open shots when he was hitting them. But they ended up doing that. And Rudy Gobert, like, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think he is massively overrated. I get it. He's a defensive player, multi-time defensive player of the year, like fantastic rim protector, but he is a complete liability on offense. Obviously in general, but in the playoffs, oh my God. I mean, Jokic was just leaving him open. That's how they were able to do the double teams. But on defense, he's kind of been a liability in the playoffs too. Jokic has killed him. Like Jokic was literally picking him out. When Rudy Gobert was out there, Jokic was literally singling him out and saying, like, you can't stop me. I want you. You're the mismatch. We're going to get the switch. I want you on me. And, the Timberwolves' run was sparked when Rudy Gobert went to the bench. And if you look, a lot of times in this series, the Timberwolves played their best basketball on both ends of the court when Rudy Gobert was on the bench. Now, will he match up better against the Mavericks? We'll have to see. It's an interesting one to think about for sure. The Mavericks don't have, a dominant post-scoring center, so it's an intriguing matchup. Like it'll be really interesting to see the coaching back and forth, the chess match that the two coaches play in the Western Conference Finals. But the Timberwolves got the number 1 defense in the league, and they, a lot of times in this series, like, look, the better team won. You can say what you want. Maybe they got lucky last night, but the better team won, man. They really did. The better team won. Just top to bottom. And I'm just so glad that Game 7 was as good as it was, because the last few Game 7s have not been good. We talked about Knicks and Pacers. Boy, did that suck. But just a classic. Like, I wouldn't even mind going back and watching that game again. What did you guys think about it? I'm really interested to see what you guys think about it. Back to the Gobert thing. Like, Rudy's primarily a defensive player, but he's supposed to be one of the better rebounders in the league too. And I think that's kind of what hurt him is like Jokic is such a weird player, man, because he's like thinned down. Like he's more in shape than when he first came into the league. But that dude's got that grown man strength that you don't expect. Like, you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like when you go to the park, play pickup basketball, and there's that one old head that comes to the park and like, yeah, he looks sturdy, but I mean, you don't think of him as like Shaq or something. And then the dude hits you with his body, and you're just like, oh my word, this dude has got that grown man strength. That's what Jokic has. That dude finished with 19 rebounds. He was throwing Gobert all over the place on both sides of the court. It's just absurd. And we sit here and say this, and I'm calling Anthony Edwards the new face of the NBA, and I'm questioning if Jokic should be considered the best player in the NBA. He finished with 34 points, 19 rebounds, and 7 assists. Jamal Murray even. I sat here and said Anthony Edwards strapped him up. He finished with 35 points, but that's the problem. I think the only two guys in double digits were Jokic and Murray. Everybody else was held below double digits, so their supporting cast just didn't have it. Just didn't have it. So the Nuggets are going to have some interesting decisions to make this offseason. They'll obviously keep the core of their team together, but they're definitely going to need some depth. Who knows? Maybe they try and upgrade some of their supporting cast. Like KCP, great player, great rotation guy on any championship team, but maybe they'll want to replace him or something. Who knows? Christian Braun keeps emerging as a very helpful role player. That guy seems to make the right play every time he's out there on the court. He gets every loose ball. His defense... he'll hit a random three every now and then, but it's always the hustle plays with that guy. But just shout out to Mike Conley. That's the thing with this Timberwolves team. They're so well balanced. They have the young talent in Anthony Edwards and Cat, and then they have the veteran guys like Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert's in his prime. Just from top to bottom, just a well constructed team. And they clearly put that team together to stop the Nuggets. It's funny. The talk of the NBA, the last decade, ever since the emergence of the Warriors, and then you saw that Houston Rockets team is oh, we're going to small ball. It's all about getting smaller lineups out there, being quicker. I mean, the New York Knicks play small ball, for example. Maybe they want to reconsider that a little bit. We'll see. But the Timberwolves went the complete other way. They're we want size. We're in the Western Conference. We're competing with the guy. The Nuggets. They got size. We're competing with the Thunder. Even the Lakers are kind of a bigger team. And speaking of the Lakers, I don't know about you guys, but it just seemed like Mike Malone was so concerned about the Lakers. He's been so concerned about the Lakers so much. He's always had so much to say about them. So it does make you wonder. Obviously the Nuggets are a championship team, and I mean most people saw them going back to back this year. I started to think that most of the regular season, even in the playoffs, I felt that way, and it felt like they figured this Timberwolves team out and it's a testament to the Timberwolves. They were able to take the Nuggets' best punch. They made some adjustments. They took the ball out of Jamal Murray's hands, so that he wasn't getting pressed full court. They made Aaron Gordon bring the ball up the court in games 3, 4, 5 a little bit. Better team won. So as we wrap this one up, I wanted to take a look at the what Vegas thinks about these series. I'm not going to dive into these these conference final series too much. We'll save that for the next one. But let's just see what we're looking at here. So obviously the Celtics are definitely favored over the Pacers. So the most likely result, according to most sports books, is Celtics winning that series in 5. I could see that. But who knows? This Pacers team is strange. They're an up and down team. They get up and down the court so fast. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Tyrese Halliburton might be underrated now all of a sudden. He started this season off incredibly hot. Obviously the Pacers were the talk of the NBA during that in-season tournament. They were on fire. And then, I don't know, as the season started to come to a close, Halliburton was struggling. He was putting up really bad numbers towards the end of the season, and then he just turned it on big time in this last series. Look, I could see the Pacers making this a 6-game series. I would be shocked if it went 7 games. The Celtics are going to take care of business. It just seems like they've had a very easy path to the finals. The Pacers will be an interesting test for them. I thought the Knicks would have been too. It would have been an interesting dynamic. But, Vegas clearly knows Celtics in 5 is the most likely result. Let's take a look at what they think about the Mavs and Timberwolves. So the most likely result for that series, wow, Timberwolves in 5. So they see both, as of right now, Vegas thinks the most likely result is Timberwolves in 5 and Celtics in 5. I don't know, man. That Mavericks team's interesting. I could spend a whole podcast talking about them, but I will save that for the next episode. We were going to preview both conference finals. Just wanted to quickly recap these ones with you guys here. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, turn on post notifications. Like I said, you can find me on all social platforms at The Daily Drip. Definitely follow me on Instagram. That's where you're going to see a lot of these clips. And let's just keep this train moving, guys. I will catch you in the next one.